trashy pulp novels of the world have anything to offer? Are bestsellers all they're hyped up to be? The Terrible Book Club explores whether or not you really can judge a book by its cover or its ridiculous synopsis. If you've ever seen a book and thought, ugh, who's reading this? We probably are.
Welcome to another episode of the Terrible Book Club. I'm Chris, and this is Paris.
Hello.
And this time, we read The Betrayal, book one in the Fear Street Saga by R.L. Stine. A familiar name to you, perhaps, person who is listening.
Yes. So, when I was a kid, I loved the Fear Street Saga. I was super into the Fear Street books. I remember going to the library and seeing the Goosebumps books and being like, oh, fuck that, that's kid shit, when I was also a child. Like, I was like 7, and I just was like, no, I need some harder stuff.
Sesame Street, get out of here. I only watch Naruto.
Basically. And so I found the Fear Street Saga, which I believe I read first, and I super fell in love with it as a kid. Recently, I've been listening to the Goosebuds podcast, where these 3 dudes read Goosebumps books, and I think they read one Fear Street book, but it just reminded me, like, I was like, oh yeah, I did really like the Fear Street Saga books. I should, maybe I should read one of those. So thanks, Goosebuds, for inspiring this episode.
I read a lot of Goosebumps as a kid, like a whole lot of like the regular series books. There was even like a
really? I didn't know
adventure
that.
Series that I was really, really into.
They've done a bunch of those on the show on Goosebuds, and they're fucking ridiculous.
My favorite one was the one about like medieval knights or something. Like they time traveled into like some weird maze, and there was like a knight chasing them.
Yeah,
or something.
Yeah. I think they did. I think they actually did that. I don't know.
That was my favorite one.
They did
a lot of like puzzles to solve.
They did one about Terror Tower. I don't know. I think they might have done the maze one. I'm not sure. But there are way too many Goosebumps books, is what I discovered by listening to the Goosebuds podcast. Way too many fucking Goosebumps books. Like I said, I never read any of them because I just thought that they were like, I don't know.
You were far too grown up at
childish.
7.
Yeah, or 7 or 9. I mean, I know I was definitely under 10 when I started reading the books. So yeah, I was really drawn to the Fear Street Saga because it was like in the past, and at the time I was really into mythology and history, and then like that trickled into like being really into colonial times and anything that wasn't the present. I don't know. I was just really into things that happened not recently as a kid. The Fear Street Saga books, they explain how Fear Street kind of like came to be and why it's cursed and haunted and all that crap. The first book we read The Betrayal, and in this one we go back all the way to the beginning to the very first conflict between the Fear family and the Good family. I can't remember anyone's fucking names.
On the nose naming, of course, classic R.L. Stine's.
Oh, yeah.
Can I just, before you get started here, I want to let you know that, like, this read pretty much exactly like any Goosebumps book I ever wrote, except
no way.
Slightly less supernatural.
Fucking no way. This book rules, Chris. This book is awesome.
It's the same, like, level of frightfulness and, like, the same methods of, like, foreshadowing and, like, trying to be scary, because it's literally just a Goosebumps book set in, like, colonial New England or something.
No way. No fucking way, man. This book sounds way better than any Goosebumps book I've ever heard about.
Have you read any Goosebumps?
No, but I've been listening to nothing but the Goosebumps podcast, which is
man, I'm telling, like, you might need to read one on your own because it's pretty much the same thing. I mean, I don't know how you're telling yourself it's that much different when it's really not.
Well, okay, so, and I say this book is awesome just because it's a nostalgia thing for me, and I think, rereading it, I was like, oh, right, now I remember why I liked this. I mean, The writing is not great. It's definitely very bland and written so that a 10-year-old can read it and understand what's going on and not be confused. So,
and also be a little scared.
It's very plodding. There's really no surprise. Like, RL tries to have some surprises, but he just foreshadows the hell out of it that, like, if you're even sort of paying attention, you know what's going to happen. So that's kind of a bummer. Reading it as an adult, I'm like, man, as a kid, did I find these things surprising? I don't remember. I think I just liked the setting. So it starts...
consider that when you're a kid, you haven't been exposed to a lot of the tropes enough because you just don't have that experience under your belt. So nearly anything can be surprising when you don't have the context to know that this is a device or mechanism that's been used over and over and over.
And it might be that, like, maybe this was like my first go at, scary chapter books because I was
Paris's
a little kid.
First scare.
Yeah. No, I wasn't afraid of the books. I mean, I loved them and I was really into it. And so in The Betrayal, the whole series, this whole saga, I think the first 3 books are couched in like this meta setting where it's this woman, is it Nora Good? I forget.
Yeah, it's Nora Good. Media in res.
Yeah, or in media res, yeah.
Whatever.
Nora Good, writing the history of her family. She's like, oh man, I gotta do this before the end of the night. I mean, you don't really understand why there's like a fucking time limit on it, but...
There was a house fire that she witnessed, and then she ran home after her hysterical episode after seeing the house fire and decided to write down the history of the goods versus the fears because I guess someone involved in this house fire was a fear or a good, perhaps. She was real distraught at the start of the book about seeing this house and the people on fire. She ran all the way home to get writing, which is always what I do when I witness something horrific.
Yeah, I see my boyfriend or husband go up in flames. You know what? I want to go home and write my whole family genealogy down. That's exactly that's how I cope with tragedy. So that's how Nora Good copes with tragedy. I think her man friend something fear, I don't know, Nora and someone. God, there's so many fucking goods and fears getting together in these books and shagging down. Oh, Daniel. It was Daniel. Okay. So Nora sees Daniel fucking catch on fire in this house and she's like, oh, fuck, I gotta write down my family history. I gotta end this war or whatever. So...
because they weren't at war already, like knowing what they were upset with each other. I don't know.
So the after it sets you up for like, oh man, she's writing this book and you're gonna read it. You read her little story. So it starts in 1692 in Wickham Village, Massachusetts, which is like supposed to be Salem Village, which is now Danvers. A lot of people think it's Salem, Massachusetts, which is where all the spooky witch shit happens, but nope, it was Danvers. Danvers used to be called Salem Village, and then Salem was just Salem. I think Salem Town.
Salem was like, hey, that's our thing. Can you? Like, they filed a copyright claim on Salem Village or something.
No,
you guys aren't witchy enough down here, so you're gonna have to change yourself to a real lame name like Danville or something.
Salem Village changed its name to Danvers, I believe, to distance itself from the witch hysteria. And then Salem just was like, oh, sweet, we're going to capitalize on it. So now everything's witches there. I lived in Salem for a little bit, and I hated it. It sucked. So anyway, so this book is like, it starts off in kind of a, hey, remember the Salem witch hysteria? Well, this is it, but kind of different. So basically, Susanna Good and Edward Fear are in love. They're teenagers. What are they, like 15 or 16 or something?
Yeah, Puritan courtship age.
Yeah, I mean, so in this environment, they're not supposed to be alone without an adult chaperone, but they're like sneaking off to the woods just to like hang out, and they kiss and hold hands, and like that's the extent. That's like
Susanna
the extent
has to
of
be
it.
Sure to put her fucking hat on because her mother is like, "Are you going out that door without your head covered, you enormous slut?" Like,
put your fucking bonnet on, you whore. Yeah, it's. Yeah. I mean, Puritans, man. That's their deal.
The men's will see your golden locks and fall all over themselves.
Yeah, I mean, Puritan communities were brutal places to live. And
it's like it's like
Massachusetts.
us reading a romance section.
I was gonna say, our Massachusetts fucking blood is obvious, for us, like we're just so steeped in that Puritan heritage, we can't even handle a romantic subplot in a book. Chris, if you listen to the last episode or probably any episode of the Terrible Book Club, you would know that Chris and I we're just not into like books with romance or erotic shit in them because we feel like it just distracts from the story and is kind of a lazy crutch. So, that Puritan blood still flowing strong in the Terrible Book Club.
Yeah.
Even though neither of us are religious. Neither of us are religious.
I'm sorry I said goddamn. I'm sorry. Sorry,
fine.
Lord.
No, it actually, the very first paragraph of this book has a phrase, the borning room, and I'd never heard of the borning room. I mean, it sounds pretty self-explanatory, a room where things are born, but I was like, that's a thing? Anyway, so Susanna and Edward are in love, but of course, they're not supposed to be because Edward is the son of, like, the rich, what is
magistrate.
it? Judge?
He's a magistrate.
The magistrate, and his brother is the town treasurer? I don't know. He's something. I can't remember what.
Also,
but anyway,
big important man.
Yeah. The Fears are the big important man family, and the Goods are just poor, shitty farmers, and that's kind of it.
They got 2 skinny chickens and a cow, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's like kind of it. Carrots. They got some carrots.
Good
and
Eatons
so
over in Massachusetts.
Eventually it comes out that, like, Susanna and Edward like each other, and Edward tries to stand up to his dad and is like, fuck you, Dad, I'm in love, I'm gonna marry the woman I love, and we all know how that ends, and the dad's like, you won't, you will marry blah blah blah, or whatever, because it's a good political and financial alliance. Classic evil parent marriage scene. And Edward's like,
you're gonna marry this broomstick and clean everything.
Yeah, and so, that happens, and basically Fear, because in this town, in Wickham or whatever, people have been accused of witchcraft and have been burned at the stake. That's a historical inaccuracy in this book that I dislike. So while witches were burned in other countries, in the United States, witches were never burned. So they were only hanged here, or crushed, or drowned. I don't know. They had a lot of different deaths, but never
it does
burning,
say in this book that most of the other places hang them, and the Fears, what's his name? Benjamin, I think, is like the patriarch.
Benjamin or Matthew. Benjamin and Matthew Fear are the brothers. But yeah, they're
Benjamin
they fucking burn those ladies.
Yeah, he like really wants them good and crispy so that they can't be witched anymore. Because if you just hang them, their witch ghosts will come back. But if you burn them, they don't.
Yeah, so they make a point of being like, oh man, these Fear guys, they're real evil. Like, just in case you weren't sure. I forget if it's Matthew or Benjamin who concocts this plan.
Benjamin just wants to burn. Basically, he accuses Susanna of being a witch so that Edward can't marry her.
Right.
And Matthew secretly goes to Susanna's father in the night, and he goes like, hey, if you pay me some cash, maybe this will all go away, buddy. Also, I have this evil amulet with Latin on it.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Susanna and her mother actually both get accused of witchcraft, which is kind of fucked up to throw them. I mean, it's like, it's fucked up anyway, but like, damn, you're also going to throw the mom on this bonfire? Like, geez. So they drag, the mom and Susanna away, and then like Chris was saying, Matthew comes in the night, and he's like, yo, Papa Good, you got some money for me? And,
His name's actually Papa Good, by the way. He's not like some kind of Puritan pimp that, like...
I can't remember what his first... William? Was it William?
It's William.
William. So, of course, William's like, oh man, I'd do anything to, free my family. So he gives him like his most prized pen.
Yeah,
which was funny.
Matthew originally wants 100 pounds, but William only has 80. So, like, Matthew catches a pan on the wall. He's like, I'll do it if you give me that pan right there.
He's like, yo, this is a sick pan. I'll take the pan and all your money. And he's like, all right. So they have this agreement. And like, when Matthew's like, I don't know, bending over, he has like this amulet, and it's this, this amulet, I don't know why, but the image of this amulet from the artwork on one of the books is like fucking burned into my mind from my childhood. like I remember it in vivid detail. Like it's silver.
It's a really,
it's got the blue
it's
stones
an
with the
extremely
claw.
obviously evil amulet. It's like the evilest
Yeah.
amulet ever. It has like a claw on it and like words in Latin that are, it's like Dominatio per malum, which
Yeah.
you can already hear the choir in the background singing evilly when the amulet drops into camera frame.
Yeah.
Dominatio per malum.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, I mean, if you've never taken a Latin class or have lived in a fucking hole, it just means power through evil. And I
I'm
find
pretty sure
it,
you could context that shit out real quick.
that's what I'm saying, yeah. I'm really surprised that all these people who are like so God-fearing and stuff didn't know the Latin, but I guess illiteracy
I'm pretty
was
sure the mass
common.
is still done in Latin in this time as well. Like they haven't gone to the Vulgate yet by now.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, but I don't know enough about Puritanism in that time. Like I don't know enough about what scriptures they were using and stuff in worship to really know, but it did seem a little suspect that a bunch of super Christians weren't familiar enough with the words for evil and power in Latin, like to puzzle that out. And also, I feel like anyone in the village probably would have been suspect if they had seen anyone wearing something that wasn't a crucifix. I mean, people were not adorned. It was a Puritan community. Like, any colors weren't even allowed, man. Like, people were wearing brown.
And he's just
like,
wearing it in such a way that every time he bends over, his like evil intent is like clearly visible. Once again, I'm pretty sure the choir kicks up every time that thing falls into view. Because
Yeah.
also, Dominatio per malum is like some Spaceballs level shit for like the motto for your evil organization or evil
Yeah.
craft or whatever. Just
Yeah.
like power through evil because good is dumb.
Yeah, right? It's like, there's just no other way. I guess only Satan. Only Satan. Yeah, so, William's like, all right, so, dun dun dun, obviously, when William wakes up the next day and goes to the, where they're supposed to have the burning, he's like, oh, it's okay, you're gonna be free. But, surprise, Matthew, Benjamin, the Fears, and their whole entourage disappeared in the night. And Susanna and her mom burned to a bacony crisp in the morning light.
Why does the town carry out the sentence of a magistrate that ran away?
Yeah, that was my question too. I feel like most people wouldn't do that.
Especially when the magistrate not only robbed the member that his wife and child are being set on fire, but the rest of the town's food storage as well.
Yeah, it seems really bizarre.
Everyone's like, "Oh man, those guys stole all our food and fucked over this one guy whose family we're about to burn." But I guess we should still burn them because that guy said they were witches. So
yeah, well, I think that like their trial, we skipped over that, but the trial of Susanna and her mom, is her mom's name Mary? I don't know. It was something else, but I don't remember. So Susanna and her mom have this trial, and I mean, if you know anything about Puritan trials, it's pretty bullshit anyway. But there's like some fucking bats get in the courtroom, and they're like, oh,
a single bat.
Oh, I thought it was two, but whatever.
It was a bat.
They're like, oh man, you summoned Satan's helpers to your trial. Be gone, witch. And they're like,
and then also
it's just
the
a
door
bat.
opens and the wind lightly blows some torches, and they're like, it's Satan who has tried to douse the lights.
I mean, and it sounds insane, but those are things that really happened during trials in the United States for witchcraft. Like, people anything would set them off and make them think that somebody was a witch or in league with Satan, and it was just like, yeah,
Are you
it
sure
was ridiculous.
wind blowing the torches a little bit is a thing that happened? Because that seems real dumb.
I'm almost positive, but I will get back to you because I'm actually reading a book about the history of witch hunting in New England in this time period. I just got the book from a friend like a while ago, and I just started reading it. And it's actually really good so far. But yeah, I mean, it does seem like, I don't know. I haven't gotten to the actual cases. Like, this guy, as a good historian, took a bunch of real cases and kind of built chapters off of them. I've just read the beginning, but Anyway, I'll get back to you on that if
Okay,
Torch
let me
is
know
being...
if wind is Satan.
Yeah, if wind is Satan. Yeah, I'll let you know.
Wind, which is a thing that people knew, like these people knew wind existed, so it's not like it should be a new phenomenon when you open a door and the wind blows a little bit.
Is wind Satan? Next time on Terrible Book Club. All right. For now, though, so they have this trial, and that stuff happens. They get condemned. But yeah, it is really bizarre that the town is like, oh man, these dudes that, did all these horrible things, they condemned these women to die, well, I guess we'll still condemn... I think it's just to make a point about how fanatical their faith really was, and that they were able to separate those things, like, okay, the people who maybe made that judgment, disappeared in the middle of the night, but that judgment is still sound because...
Sure,
God,
RL is definitely going for some extreme ham-fistedness here to the degree that you might as well have like two pigs in your hands that you're slapping people with.
He's holding two pigs the whole time.
Just smacking you in the face with every last piece of foreshadowing or evidence or, any sort of point he's trying to make is extremely heavy-handed.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I was saying at the beginning when I was like, even if you're like halfway paying attention, you'll know what's going on. It's not really that secret. But anyway, like after this happens, William is like, no, and they reveal at that point that William Good, the dad, is actually a fucking witch. What?
Because he had a secret back room in his, I guess, barn house or whatever that... I feel like if you had a secret room in one of those houses, people would know by, like, the part of the house that's jutting out from where a normal wall would be or something.
Yeah, not to mention, like, these people were living in one-room houses.
Floor plans couldn't have been that complicated. Yeah.
How do you have a secret room in a one-room house? If there's more than one room, it's a problem. It's only one room.
Husband, when I walk outside, I notice that our shack has an extra part to it that I can't... It looks bigger than it is on the inside. What's up with that? Oh, that's nothing, honey. That's the work of God.
It's just Satan. Don't worry about it. Yeah, actually, I didn't even think about that. And that's a really excellent point, Chris, because in my mind... I don't know, I guess I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, but then I was like, oh yeah, I mean, unless the back of their house was, like, against the forest, or, like, also connected to the barn, but I don't know,
then
impossible
you would be able to
geometry is
see
happening.
the extra surface area necessary to have your evil ritual room somewhere, because they were peasants, they had 2 skinny chickens and a cow, they, like... Someone, like, did William build the extra room? And his wife was just like, hey, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, don't worry about it. Literally just never think about this again, please.
Yeah, like, just... She's
what happened with that room you were building for, a whole month?
Every time she asks, he just kills you, just hits her with the pan.
Yeah, that's what the pan's good for, actually, turns out.
The pan is an amnesia pan, and that's why it was so desired.
Matthew recognized that. Instead of hitting William over the head with it, he just ran with it, which was a stupid move, really.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. Like, yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, how the fuck did he have a secret room in a one-room house? And even if it was more than one rooms, it couldn't have been more than, like, 3, because they were real poor. So, and also they had, like, how many fucking kids did they have? They had Susanna, a baby. Did they have another kid? No, just the baby.
Yeah, it was just Susanna and the baby.
Yeah.
What happened to that nursery you were building for the baby? It's nowhere now. Sorry, it fell apart. Just don't go behind that bookcase.
Oh, another cow fire. Yeah, those cows, they just keep catching on fire. Don't worry about it.
Never go behind the bookcase. Books are Satan's work that women can't read, so just never ever touch that, please.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But anyway, yeah, so turns out he's actually an evil witch, but like this brings us to another
Warlock, please. Warlock.
Hey man, they don't call him a warlock in the book. They call him a witch, or they don't call him anything, maybe. But anyway, this brings us to another point. If he's such a powerful fucking magic dude, why didn't he employ his magic to save his fucking family?
He waited till after to do anything about it.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, dude, and why did he give... Okay, so many questions. 1, why didn't he use his magic to prevent the deaths of his wife and daughter? 2, when Matthew Fear came to extract a bribe from him, why did he not use his magic then? 3, when he saw that amulet, why was he not like, bro?
Yeah, oh,
hey,
yeah, shit, evil buddies. Hey, check it out.
Empire.
I got this room back here.
Yeah, like I just feel like there are so many opportunities for his involvement in black magic to have solved this situation that it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like,
Black magic is revenge only. That's the one downside about it. You can only use it in a revenge scheme, not for actually saving anyone. I guess that's how this has to work.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. And then the other question is, like, all the shit that was happening in town, all the other people that were accused of witchcraft, like, were they actually witches? Or, like, did he create this hysteria for no reason? Or, like, was he doing shit in the town that then got attributed to other people? I mean, that's the most likely scenario, but if so, what the fuck was he doing? Because they didn't even describe the quote-unquote crimes of the other women, so I have no idea.
That's just left up to your own personal interpretation, I guess. They could have been witches, they could not have been...
Yeah, so the fucking story is suspect as hell. But anyway...
But I thought you said it was awesome.
Yeah, I did, because I was saying that from the perspective of, like, a 7-year-old Paris who was like,
okay.
oh,
All
man,
right.
this is so great, yeah. But anyway, yeah, so the plot is, like, kind of suspect. So, I don't know, what, like, 20 years passes, I think?
So, it's 15, I think.
15 or 20
The timing
years.
is really weird in this book because I feel like the year math doesn't work out a lot. It's like at one point...
no, it's 18 years.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
It feels like it jumps around between a couple of different time periods and RL just lost track and hopes you don't care enough to notice.
Oh, no, it's consistent. I didn't have any issues with that.
All right. It felt something... I remember there being a number that didn't jibe well with me for some reason.
So when the story starts in Wickham, it's 1692, I believe, and then when they pick up after the girls get burned, it's 1710. And they're in Pennsylvania, I think.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, Pennsylvania, 1710. So 18 years passes, and it's just like cut to black. 18 years later, curtain rises on Pennsylvania frontier where we have Matthew and Benjamin Fear. And they've, created this wonderful homestead on this farm in Pennsylvania.
Out of a pan and the foodstuffs of a village, they've created a new life.
And like all good capitalist businessmen, they built a wonderful empire on the blood and backs of others.
That's how you do
it. Edward, who was a teenager, when we last saw him, it's now 18 years later, so he's in his 30s, his late 30s, mid to late 30s. And he has a wife and son of his own. Interestingly enough, not the woman that he was supposed to marry, because remember, they just said, peace out to that village, and apparently also that marriage that was planned. So, he marries some other lady. They have a kid named Ezra. I forget the lady's name. And
Rebecca.
Then, Rebecca. Yep. And so he marries Rebecca. They have Ezra. And his uncle, Matthew, he married a lady named Constance, and they had Mary. And Mary is young. I think she's, 20, 16, something like that. Young.
Yeah.
And Mary and Edward are actually really good friends. Like, despite their age difference, they're good cousin friends. And, so we're seeing their life on the farm, and everything's going real well.
Edward has his own house to storm off to sometimes when Benjamin's being a jerk or something.
Yeah. And so I forget what happens oh, yeah, that's right. Edward goes up to, fix the roof and falls off the roof because he just wasn't fucking listening to anyone. Everyone was like, yo, dude, we know the roof's fucked up, but, it's gonna be dark. You're gonna have literally no light. It's probably not safe to go up there and fix it right now. And he's like, get out of my way. Hold this ladder, you wench. I'm gonna fucking fix this roof. I don't care what anybody says. And, of course, he falls off the roof and, breaks his arm. And right after they kind of, deal with that, I think the next morning, this very beautiful man just shows up and approaches Mary. And Mary's like, oh, fuck, how do I talk to this guy? He's so attractive. I've only hung out with my family my whole life. I don't know how to handle the situation. Because they're not, in a village. They're, just out somewhere on the frontier. So, yeah, she literally has just lived with her family her whole life. So
there's
Jeremy,
a village down the way that this
yeah.
gentleman says he comes from. He's like, my father's sick. I'm looking for some work. Perhaps you have some on your farmstead, madame.
Yeah, and his name is Jeremy, and he is gorgeous. He's apparently Fabio, 1710 Fabio. So, long blonde hair and, very, very fit.
Shirt
and all
always
that.
half open.
Oh, yeah. I think in the first scene that he appears in, he's described as having his shirt, like, unbuttoned to his navel or something ridiculous like that.
Why have a shirt at that point? Just put the vest on, man. Like, we know that you really...
He just really needs sleeve coverage from the sun, but not chest coverage. So, she's obviously smitten with him, and the family is pretty resistant, but they're like, well, Edward did just fall off the roof and fucking break his arm, so I guess we do need help. Good timing, stranger. Which is, your first clue that something's fucky. And so, yeah, this goes on for a period of weeks or months. I'm not sure.
A couple of weeks, I think, was the time frame.
I thought it was maybe longer than that, but I don't know. This book is real quick. It's real fast-paced, like I said.
Long enough for Mary and Jeremy to fall in love, which in Puritan times was like, oh, they looked at each other once and they didn't know how to handle any of the new feelings at all.
Yeah. So Mary and Jeremy fall in love, and they never really do, just like Susanna and Edward, they never really do anything more than, like, hang out in the woods, maybe have a kiss, a handhold, a hug, whatever. But they're in love and they want to get married. And, while their love is blossoming, a bunch of awful things befall the Fear family. So we started with Edward breaking his arm. That's followed by, I think, Benjamin or Matthew losing all their
Benjamin starts
motor
getting
functions?
like weird paralysis.
Yeah, it's kind of like he's stroking out, but he's not having any like aphasia or any mental problems. He's just like losing function of his limbs, one limb at a time, I believe.
Yep.
So I think it like starts with a leg and then it moves up to the arm and then it goes to the other arm and then the other leg and then he eventually just fucking dies. And
A straight up like heart attack or something like that, I think.
yeah, and then I don't remember what happens to Constance.
I don't think anything happens to Constance.
No, she gets walled in or something.
At the
right?
very, she's like the
Yeah.
last person there because it's Matthew and her at the end. Because then what happens, it's basically Edward first gets the arm broken, Benjamin starts getting the paralysis thing, and then some weird shit happens with Rebecca,
Yeah, and
if you remember that.
Rebecca was already like pretty frazzled, and then she decides to kill herself.
She just hangs herself. Just
Hangs
'cause she
herself. Yeah, just hangs herself, and Edward finds her, and is pretty distraught about it. And then he, Ezra is like a difficult child, and Edward like doesn't want to be fucking bothered with him. Oh yeah, and then one day when Edward and Mary are out walking in the woods, they see a vision of Susanna Good and her mother being burned alive, and Mary's like, "Whoa, what the fuck was that?" And Edward's like, "Nothing."
Yeah, it was absolutely nothing.
Nothing. Don't worry about it. Definitely not a key to my horrible past. Definitely not.
Don't worry about that.
And so
That seems to be the good family, or not the good. I guess like everyone involved in this story is just their way, like men's way of handling things. It's like just don't worry about it. Think about that room that I built. Don't worry about that fire vision that you just had with me. Don't worry about any of that.
don't worry about that whole town we fucked over and all those people we murdered. It's cool. Just keep going. Just keep looking ahead, son. So Edward's kind of losing it and is like, okay, like. Something has to do with this. Like, there's something fucked up. And all the while, even though these bad things are happening, Mary and Jeremy still want to get married. So Mary talks to her dad, just like, look, I want to marry Jeremy. But they're like, isn't he like a peasant? Like, you're not marrying a peasant. But then, I don't know, she protests and eventually they're like, okay, fine. And she tells Jeremy, like, oh, it's, just bring your dad to dinner and we're gonna have a dinner and it's gonna be great and everything's cool. And so the day arrives and Mary's super psyched.
He reveals that he's a good at that point.
Jeremy's like, hey, so let's go behind the shed. Let's have a sit behind the shed. And he's like, all right, Mary, I love you, but I did have to kind of lie to you, and I'm real sorry. But I still love you. And he's like, well, I'm actually a good, but I couldn't tell you that because your family hates the goods, and I didn't want that to, cloud their judgment. And she was like, totally cool, man. I understand. I still love you. It's fine. I forget if he tells her anything else.
just bring your dad over to dinner and then we'll all settle this once and for all. I think he actually does reveal like the whole thing, what happened, and that his dad, William Good, is like very upset with them and that they would want to murder each other if they saw each other.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
Mary's like, oh no, just bring him to dinner. It'll be fine.
That's right. Yeah, he does tell her about the burning of Susanna Good and her mom and like how all that went down. And Mary and Jeremy are just like, no, we're going to fix this. Like, we love each other. Like, we can prove that, like, you know, a generation has passed. You know, we can right this wrong. So everything's cool. They embrace. The plan is set. And then the day comes with the dinner, and Mary's super psyched. You know, she's in her best dress, and she's real excited. Jeremy walks in, and his face explodes.
Yeah, well, this is because Mary had confronted her Uncle Matthew about what Jeremy had told her, and for one paragraph, he's like, no, that didn't happen. Then he's immediately like, actually, yeah, we did totally burn people alive and steal food for people.
We did.
That totally happened. And so when Jeremy walks in, he's like, Dominatio per malum at him, and his head explodes.
Yeah, Jeremy's head, it's actually a pretty cool scene because Jeremy's head, like, melts like a like, you know those cool candles that have like prizes inside of them? That's kind of what happens to Jeremy's head. It like melts away until the real person underneath appears. And can we guess who that is?
It's William.
Yeah, it's William. Duh.
He's just in a beautiful man disguise to seduce the youngling of the family.
And like, bro, why didn't you just ride that train to its destination? Like, you could have had a good life. You could have married into the Fear family. You could have had this young, beautiful wife who clearly doesn't know anything about the world. Probably would have been great. But nope. You just had to...
he really wanted to get that revenge. I'm sure, like, a marriage into that family wasn't anything he actually wanted to do because he hated all of them.
Yeah, I guess, but I'm just saying.
He'd been wandering for like 10 years or something looking for them. Like when we open up on this, he's like wandering through the brush and he just happens upon their house. He's like, I found them finally.
Yeah, he did spend like 18 years looking for them. So
if only I had my trusty pan, it could have been so much easier. Yeah. But that bastard took it.
But no, it's like, if he's such a powerful fucking sorcerer, again, like, why did any of this even need to happen? And also, like, if he's such a powerful sorcerer, why couldn't he just employ witch GPS? Like, doesn't he have a raven? He could be like, yo, find those spheres. The raven would be like, there they are. Like, he didn't need to literally walk the earth on his feet.
Also, like, the whole seduction plan, I don't get, because, like, what's the end game there other than getting your head melted by... Because he kills the rest of the... No, he doesn't kill them. Because Matthew and Constance are left to wall themselves in. Yeah,
Matthew and Constance wall themselves in and eventually die, like, walled into a room in that house. Edward and Mary and Ezra survive and run away. Mary, however, is forever crazy after this. All she can say, like, after this happens is, where's Jeremy? Is Jeremy coming? Is Jeremy coming? Where's Jeremy? Like, that's just her for the rest of her life. She's so scarred that that's it. That's all she can do is wonder about him and think about him, which is really fucking depressing. So Mary is just a broken toy. Edward and Ezra are fine. I don't know. I forget. They just leave. I forget what happens after that. But yeah, I don't like if William is such a powerful sorcerer that he can convincingly do all this stuff. Like, I wonder if maybe he's just oh, my phone is ringing. I'm going to silence that. Sorry about that.
Terrible book club intermission here.
Yeah, terrible book club intermission where Paris silences her phone. Sorry. So yeah, I mean, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just overestimating his powers as, you know, a minion of Satan. But
it seems like there's not a really good deal to this being a minion of Satan thing, aside from like a beautiful man disguise.
Yeah, which like I said, ride that train, man. Like, if that's what you got, like, do that. Because at this point, he's got to be probably pushing 50s at this point, maybe 60. Because I'm sure, you know, he had a teenage daughter, so youngest he could have been was like his 30s. When it started, and this is 18 years later, so 48 is probably the youngest he would really be. But even that's like being generous.
I don't know. I think being on an 18-year revenge quest makes you see beyond like a steady supply of Puritan puss or something. Like,
yeah, that's probably actually very true. Maybe that's what his alliance with Satan has granted him.
They don't. I mean, Puritan girls probably don't
vision.
even do that much of anything. So, like, is it really worth it?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's that. And then I think that's it, right? That was like the end.
Yeah. Well, no, Ezra. There's a scene with older Ezra coming back to the old farmhouse, and he discovers.
Oh yeah, he finds Constance and Matthew walled in, right?
Yeah, Matthew and Constance, like, their skeletons, like, walled into the side of the house or something, and he, like, also vows revenge, just thus continuing the cycle of fear and goods, like, hating each other forever.
Yeah, no one's ever smart enough to just, like, stop it. No one.
And also, no one's ever smart enough to, like, not fuck someone else from that family. I guess, like, they keep falling in love with each other a little bit, and then it probably falls, according to the Nora at the start, at least.
Yeah. I don't know, man. So, yep, it's real dumb. That's it. Yeah. So, that's how Fear Street came to be known as Fear Street. And,
I'm sure we were all on the edge of our seat about it. I'm sure you all really wanted to know the more serious series next to Goosebumps. Not that kiddie shit, but this is the one with head poppins and Satan stuff, as opposed to just ghosts and masks that stay on your face forever.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean,
which is cooler. By the way, that's cooler, a mask that stays on your face forever. That's much scarier and more interesting than, oh no, Puritans and witches. The Crucible Light. Oh my god, I'm so scared.
Fuck you, man. I think a dude's head melting like a candle with a fun prize inside of another man is pretty cool. Like, I don't I don't think
sure, but the one about a ball of, like, goo that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and enveloping a whole town is much more interesting to me as a child, I would say.
Like I said, I just really liked history shit. Anything that wasn't happening now, I was, like, all about. So, and, you know, it took place in Massachusetts, and my parents had taken me to, like, Salem stuff when I was real little, so I think I was just really into that whole, like, colonial witch, historical New England horror stuff. So yeah, that was that. It was fun to read a book I read as a kid because I didn't really remember it. But yeah, and it goes on like this for many books. There were like 3 initial Fear Street Saga books, and then I think he kept going with that. And then there were just the regular Fear Street books, which were, you know, just like evil cheerleaders and whatever.
They don't seem that hard to pump out, so, you know.
Yeah, he sure does. Sure does pump those out. There's been this nagging question of, like, whether he used ghostwriters or not, and depending on what what source you look at, some of them are like, oh, RL never used ghostwriters, and some of them are like, obviously he did. He was putting out a book every 3 weeks, you know, like.
Yeah.
But then again, they don't take much to write. Excuse me. So, yeah. So, I guess, like I said, the writing was really, like, bland, but I think that's just
it's so kids can
writing.
Hear the obvious foreshadowing of dominant.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, also there's a hilarious typo at the end. So I don't know if any of you have read these books, but they always try to, like, get you to read more of the books either at the beginning or the end. And there was this part that was like, oh man, the Fear Street books, yeah, like, read them, and it has
real effective advertising.
Yeah, where is it? There's like, oh, sorry, is it before the title? Anyway, it just keeps referring to Fear Street as Pear Street, and I just couldn't stop laughing about how, like, ooh,
there was also
the evils of Pear Street, and it just kept going on. So the Kindle edition.
All the ladies around there, real bottom heavy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, yes, the Kindle edition.
I'd hang out on that street
really
if that was
funny.
the case.
But
similarly, there was a bunch of times where Benjamin Peer was referred to as Benjamin Peer. Did you not notice that?
Oh no, I didn't.
There was definitely a couple of times where it was Benjamin Peer or Matthew Peer instead of Fear, which was hilarious.
Yeah, I also like Pear. I think I like Pear better. But yeah, I mean, there weren't that many typos. Like, it was an all right story. I mean, it's, you know, nothing super new, but yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's not supposed to be new because it's just tropes for kids that haven't experienced the tropes before.
Yeah, but a lot better than many other books we've read on the show. I will say.
Sure, why? You know, it's coherent and it has a structure.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't completely hate it, even though there were a ton of things that made no sense. But, like, whatever. You know, fun nostalgia read. We did it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that, you know, we did a short one last time, and this is probably going to be another short one that gets released pretty quickly after that other one. But the next thing we're doing seems meatier, seems bigger.
Yeah, the next thing is going to be, I think, a truly terrible book. I think we're going to return to our roots on the next episode.
There's no way it can't be good. It can be good.
I don't know. Do we want to give anyone a clue?
It's an autobiography. Well, it's not. It's a biography that's not a real biography.
It's an unauthorized biography of a famous person.
Yeah. As opposed to those biographies about unfamous people that no one knows.
Yeah, I mean, those people write their life stories or whatever. Like, you can do that if you're not famous. It's not like
like no one's gonna like. Oh, here's the biography of Bob Jameson. He lived down the street over here, and he was a garbage man his whole life. Picking up garbage for 40 years tells you a whole lot. I'm Bob Jameson, garbage guy. Not a garbage person as in a trash person that deserves no respect, but all garbage men deserve respect. Let me tell you...
Chris, okay, is it garbage day?
Yeah, it is.
Sorry. I've been on the internet too long. Hopefully some of you understand that reference. If not, watch Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 and understand.
All right, well... I think this is where we thank people for listening.
Yeah,
and point them towards.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks to our patron Dari, singular patron, and we have a Patreon where you can throw us $1 to $8 a month. Choose your tier and get lovely rewards such as thank yous on the show and access to premium content like Chris and I watching the entire Maradonia movie and commenting over it. That alone is worth $4.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's also a Facebook. There's also an Instagram. There's also a Twitter.
Yeah, check out the Instagram. I've been trying to put stuff on there every day, but updating social media and shit is just fucking exhausting, to be honest with you. But I do try to post at least something every day. When we release a new episode, I post something, and I add it to the story feature, which I have finally figured out in my old age. Yeah, so check us out. We like hearing from you guys, so feel free to, leave comments on stuff for us, send us messages. Email us hate mail. We get those sometimes.
Paris, are you really an older woman who is on a revenge quest? That if I say Dominatio per Malinat, will your head melt and a much older woman will pop out? Is that what you mean by
How did you
getting
know?
Up there in age? Oh,
how did you know?
Oh no! I figured it out.
How did you know?
Fear Street.
Fear Street.
All right.
Oh boy, I need to go to bed.
All right. Bye, Paris.
All right. Bye, Chris.